Hello everyone and welcome back to Game Week 3 of the 25-26 Slater and Gordon Premiership, where you join myself, Ryan Sipple, alongside Charlie McClellan for West Bromwich Albion Throstles versus Newcastle United Foundation on Court B. Let's go through the squads really quickly. For Throstles, Amy Lee Julian, Amy Wharton, Regan Kemp, Parth Gakwad, Jonathan Davis, Abigail Bolt and Thomas Donaher. And for Newcastle United Foundation, they have Aaron Guthrie, Kieran Steer, Ollie Crawshaw, Lee Armstrong, Sam McKee, Matty Harrison and Cole Simpson. Charlie, first game together for quite some time. How are you?
I'm good, yeah. First of 2026. We had a very productive 2025, didn't we? Got about doing our commentary, and yeah, we're back for another year. It's going to be a great year of Powerchair Football, I think, based on, well, the little snippets we've seen this morning already. Some fantastic football being played, some drama. The title race is already in full swing.
Yeah, on that point, I've had 3 games so far today. I've had Greenbank Muscle Warriors, I've had Leeds GBG Knights and Muscle Warriors Teesside, which were, I think, 4-0, 5-0 and 9-0 respectively. So 3 genuine title contenders, title challengers that turn on the style here at the Lee Westwood Sports Centre. You, of course, have watched both West Brom and Aspire, not quite hitting the same heights as their other title contenders.
I thought West Brom were very good, actually. I thought West Brom were strong. They're the best football I've seen from them all season, definitely. They moved the ball really well and got a last-minute winner, carried on going to the death. And the real energy about West Brom, like, they had that renewed impetus, and obviously the big character in Zach Dickey must have helped that. And then Aspire came out and just didn't have any of that impetus, didn't have any of that aggression. And yeah, they went out with a whimper against Middlesbrough. I've never seen a game which just looked like a complete lack of desire from a side, and that's what it felt like to me. It felt like Middlesbrough just outworked them almost. Like every ball that was a 50-50, Middlesbrough made a 60-40, made it a very difficult, hostile game, and used the sort of, not the dark arts, but, well, yeah, the intelligent ways to sort of slow the game down, readjusting themselves, having good tacticals. I mean, it was a tactical masterclass from Carolyn Goldsborough and from Paul Yates. It was brilliant from Middlesbrough. A fantastic point for them in the road to survival. And yeah, I have to say it was a very difficult watch at times because the game just never really got going.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with all of those assessments. And when we're talking about that race or that battle towards the bottom of the standings, there is no world where Middlesbrough get relegated. Their defence is too solid. Something they may need to work on, or may wish to work on, is that attacking output, being a little bit braver against the lesser sides. But they are so organised and so solid against some of the league leaders that they will have more than enough come season's end to ensure that it's then a 3rd consecutive season in the top flight, which is very much deserved. I watched Muscle Warriors twice today. I've watched GBG Knights today. Sevenoaks are about to play their first game of the weekend. Certainly the first 2 struggled massively, and Middlesbrough just seem to be excelling where others are struggling. This will be an interesting one. Newcastle United Foundation coming off the back of a 1-0 defeat to West Bromwich Albion. Tight tactical. I think it was a very... Did you call that action?
Yeah, I did.
It was a very late goal, was it not?
Yeah, literally pretty much in additional time. To be fair, based on the balance of the game, West Brom probably deserved it, but Newcastle defended really well, which is the hard part. Ollie Crawshaw was fantastic in the middle. Discipline was a big issue for Newcastle in terms of they gave away a lot, and I mean a lot, of 2-on-1s around their area. Obviously, they're defending in a different way now with Ollie wearing the goalkeeper shirt. That seems like something they're going to persist with. And Lee was often getting caught in 2-on-1s with, for example, Cole Simpson when he was coming in to defend. So,
yeah, that certainly is a distinction from game weeks 1 and 2, and the majority of last season. I think it's sensible from Jamie Harrison and Newcastle because, let's be honest, if Ollie's going to break into that senior England team, it's going to be in a goalkeeper shirt. The central area is too stacked with quality, with John Boldin, with Tyler Reeve, with Ethan Fisher. Dan McClellan has deputised there at times. So if you're Ollie Crawshaw, you're assessing the path above you. That is the position. Can you emulate what Chris Gordon does? Because we haven't quite found that replacement for Chris Gordon in the senior squad.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a niche role to learn. That's the issue. It's Chris Gordon has been not lucky, but he's made his own luck in the sense that he's been able to play that role in pretty much every team he's played in for years and years. Ollie needs to find his niche. You know, is he going to be in there as a winger? Potentially, but you would have said last season, for example, when he was on really good form, that he was knocking on the door as a winger. But now he's moved into the centre. Yeah, it's going to be... He's going to have those ambitions, and I have no doubt that Ollie's going to play for England. But yeah, he does need to find that sort of niche position that gets him in there. Yes.
And Throstles, a hard-earned point against Villa Rockets earlier today. They're coming into Gameweek 3 with some fantastic form, having beat Greenbank and GBG Knights in the latter stages of Gameweek 2. So I expect a lot from them. So to go through the squads as they line up, West Bromwich Albion Throstles have Parth Gackwood as the most defensive of the 4 players, but Regan Kemp in the centre, adorning that pink goalkeeper shirt. And then they have wingers of Thomas Donaher and Abigail Bolt. And as we've already alluded to, Ollie Crawshaw, the designated goalkeeper of Newcastle United Foundation, but I very much suspect he will be that kind of central connector for defence and attack. Lee Armstrong behind him with Aaron Guthrie and Cole Simpson.
Yeah, Throstles for me have been one of my pleasant surprise packages this season. I was not expecting them to, I was expecting them to compete and stay up because, they've got good enough players and experience, but they've been much better than I was even thought. And, that Greenbank result that you mentioned, I mean, what a result that was. An absolute turn-up for the books.
Lee Crawshaw just ushering Aaron Guthrie towards him. Slightly too much pace, but to your point, Charlie, if they have switched roles and responsibilities, it may take a few games, a few game weeks for that matter, to get the chemistry, which they certainly established when Lee Armstrong was the goalkeeper. This is a team that went 10 games last season without conceding, and did so, I think, in the first game week of 25-26, so a lot of their identity is built on that solidity at the back.
Yeah, it's a very big principle, and always has been since they got promoted to the Premiership, and it's really smart from Newcastle, the way that they operate. I think Jamie Harrison is a top coach.
Yeah, one of the best in the country, without question. That was a really nice ball, that from Lee Armstrong, split through to Cole Simpson, who fired it over to the alternate wing, but Aaron Guthrie slightly too advanced to capitalise. But the warning signs are there, but we know how tough Regan Kemp and West Bromwich Albion and Throstles are to break down. He is a brick wall at the back, and I would set our viewers the task, the interactive element of counting how many interceptions and ricochets come off the Throstles number 8.
Yeah, he was running the show for them earlier on. Interestingly for Newcastle, Aaron Guthrie you mentioned there,
It looked almost a certain goal. Thomas Donahoe with a fantastic ball across the box. He has established such a good connection and chemistry with Abigail Bolt. We saw it in Game Week 1 and Game Week 2, and nearly in Game Week 3 we saw them capitalise. The best moment of the game so far.
Yeah, that was a really good ball. Challenging. To be fair, the Newcastle defence were just about able to scramble back. I don't think there was much Bolt could have actually done with it, but a great show of intent from Throstles. And I'm so surprised by the positions that the players have taken up. When I looked at the squad for Throstles this season, I thought, well, maybe Tom Donaher is a prominent central player with Kemp behind him, and then I definitely thought Parth Gackwood would play out on a wide position, and he sort of made that sitting deep goalkeeper without the goalkeeper shirt on role his own, and is very dependable there now, and the system just works, doesn't it?
It does. I'll elaborate in just a second. Following this corner kick, Cole Simpson into the box, over to Aaron Guthrie. ricochets. I think it benefited him and Newcastle not hitting it cleanly because it just misplaced and displaced Parth Kakwad momentarily. But Regan Kemp there. Yeah, to your point, Parth Kakwad has made that position his own. When they want to be braver, they want to be more proactive. We've seen them use Amy Lee Julian in the centre, and then Regan Kemp drops back. So they have that in their arsenal. They can chop and change depending on the game state, which is really exciting and the development from last season. But when they want to be defensive, they want to be solid, this system is tried and tested, and they've got some fantastic wins from it. As you've already said, that Greenbank one particularly stands out as one of their moments of the season. Yeah,
that will be one of the moments of the season, I think, just in general. When you look at sort of the shock results, I think that will be right up there. It was just a fantastic performance from them defensively, and going forward to get the goal as well. And they'll be hoping to replicate that here. Obviously this morning, well, it was a 1-1 draw against Villa Rockets, but it felt almost like a win, I guess, for Throstles, because it was a late goal, a fantastic goal at that. I mean, an absolute stunner, really. Great finish from Abby Bolt into that back post. And
I don't think it's unfair to say she's playing the best football of her career, the most confident. She's obviously supporting them as a coach as well. She's just found a rhythm and a confidence that's translating on the court as well as off of it.
Completely agree. She's just got a certain swagger about her this season that's very different.
Shout out to Gary McKee tuning in to watch Newcastle United Foundation and Sam. And yes, Sam was present at the Regional Emergent Talent Programme on Tuesday, where he's enrolled in the North region and is performing very nicely on said region. Be good to see him feature at some point in this game or weekend as a whole. Into Abigail Bolt, across the box, slightly forced. Ollie Crawshaw with no real trouble, sweeping that out to Cole Simpson. Nice ball over to Thomas Donohan. A really unfortunate own goal from Ollie Crawshaw, but all of the hard work was done by Thomas Donohan. Regan Kemp on the edge. He found the angle, he found the gap, and that is fantastic stuff from Throstles, who had to absorb some pressure but have capitalised in the 6th minute.
They have indeed. It's been a fantastic start from Throstles, really good. They fully deserve that goal. They've been on the front foot, but that, for me, is about the pass from Regan Kemp. That is exquisite. The timing of that and the delicacy to just use the corner of that bumper and get it through that tiny gap. I mean, literally, the gap was a ball's width, and he managed to find it. And that's what really unlocked the Newcastle defence. And yeah, they fully deserve the start. They've been very good in the opening 6-7 minutes of this game. It's
almost a shame that the goal can't be attributed to Thomas Donohan, because he's had 3 or 4 instances on this wing right in front of us, Charlie, and he's been clinical, he's been accurate, he's been precise on every single occasion. So whilst the goal won't go down as he was absolutely crucial to that, of course, as well as Regan Kemp, who we've been spotlighting across the fixture. And now it's interesting to see how Newcastle adapt and react, more importantly. It looks like they've made a change to try and force things in their favour.
Yeah, Matthew Harrison coming on. Kieran Steer was... Well, they actually kept the same score for the whole game earlier. Oh!
Talk about immediate impact with his first touch of the game. Less than 10 seconds into his introduction, it's fired across the box into the path of Matty Harrison. The provider is Cole Simpson. That is how you react to going a goal down.
Yeah, wow. I mean, what a game we have on our hands here. 1-1 already, and that was a great reaction from Newcastle. I actually think, and, you know, I might be told off by Cole Simpson and Matty Harrison afterwards, but both of them actually scuffed their shot, their actions. Obviously, Simpson's ball across, I think, wasn't where it was intended to be. It was sort of a false connection. The same with the finish, but it actually wrong-footed the defenders on both occasions and worked massively to their advantage. And, well, they're coming forward now and look a completely renewed team.
Yeah, really nice, expansive football Cole Simpson hugging this touchline. The same can be applied to Matty Harrison on the alternate wing. Yeah, it wasn't necessarily intentional, but on that aspect of hitting it cleanly or scuffing it, we've seen some players, the likes of Ed Common and others, intentionally miss-hit it to kind of displace the defenders. It's almost like an element of deception, because if you hit it cleanly, it's fairly telegraphed where you want that ball to go.
Well, this is the thing about Powerchair Football, and it is a somewhat a predictable sport in terms of you know where people are going to go. So yeah, you are completely right. Those little moments of deception, the scuffs, can be your best friend sometimes. And I see a lot of goals scored where actually you think, did they really mean to do it like that?
Goalkeeper versus goalkeeper. It's almost impossible to beat Regan Kemp in the dribble, such as that. Such a strong player. I mean, Ollie Crawshaw is right up there with some of the country's best. Cole Simpson into Abigail Bolt. Didn't have the angle to reach the Newcastle number 10. 10 minutes gone. West Bromwich Albion Throstles 1. Newcastle United Foundation 1. And for me, this is the game of the weekend so far. I've commentated 3 very comprehensive victories on Court B. It's nice to see one be far more competitive.
Yeah, I think it's going to get more competitive as the day goes on this court as well, because yeah, you had those one-sided games this morning, but looking at the fixtures that we have for the rest of the day, we've got Greenbank GBG Knights, which could be a tough one, but then Aspire versus Newcastle on this court as well. Newcastle, that's their next game, so it could be a very, very interesting end to the day. And then Villa versus Leeds is the final game on Court B.
Cole Simpson all the way down into the Throstles box, patiently waiting for an opportunity to arise. Ollie Crawshaw on this left-hand wing. Matty Harrison very deep. You want to see him be a little bit more advanced, look for that gap. Trying to work the ball past Thomas Donaher. Once again, another block off Regan Kemp for those keeping tally.
If there actually is someone at home with a notepad creating a tally chart of Regan Kemp blocks, I will be astounded.
If there is, I will give you a massive shout out, but you have to give me the total as well at the half-time break and the full-time break. But it's just part of his game. Cole Simpson just wraps his chair around the ball, scans around him, looking for that opening. Ollie Crawshaw just always shares the same wing as him. Into the box. Again, Regan Kemp clears. Out to Matty Harrison. Can't quite make contact. Abigail Bolt's been very isolated from this fixture. Cole Simpson into Ollie Crawshaw's front bumper. Slightly rash. Doesn't look like there's much purpose in their intentions. They're generating the power, yes, but not necessarily the accuracy to hurt Throstles. And we know, as we've already seen, you have to be laser accurate to find a way through this stubborn defence. Cole Simpson, once again, constantly switching sides to take possession. Crawshaw to Regan Kemp. Out for a corner ball.
Yeah, Newcastle really grown into this. The first 6 minutes were not great for them, but since then they have been undoubtedly the dominant force in this game. Potentially a game now looking a bit more like we expected it would from the start.
Worth noting that prior to this game, 7 of Newcastle United Foundation's 10 games were clean sheets. So Throstles have already done what many others have failed to do. Nice power from Ollie Crawshaw, a lot of pace on that ball. Could have potentially set Thomas Donaher away.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that he was driving onto that forwards instead of in reverse. Would have given him a much better chance of controlling it.
The thing is with Newcastle, I just think they're forcing it a little bit too much.
Yeah, I agree. A lot of power and pace, but a bit more cuteness and disguise. I mean, that's where the goal came from, wasn't it? It came from a bit of finesse.
Yeah, knowing when to take 10-20% off the passes rather than just hitting it full power on every occasion. And that was what was so remarkable about watching Leeds earlier. They can hit the ball cleaner and sweeter than anyone, but they know when to observe that reduction, and Abigail Bolt guides it goal bound, cleared by Lee Armstrong, who's been fairly isolated, so does well to maintain his concentration. In doing so, the attack of Throstles was condensed. Didn't observe a 3-metre distance around the ball and Ollie Crawshaw, so indirect free kick to be taken by Ollie Crawshaw into Cole Simpson, flicks it to Matty Harrison, who returns the favour. Pick off to Ollie Crawshaw, nice rotated 180 over to Matty Harrison, and not quite sure why. That's an interesting one. I don't think that was a 2-on-1 personally, and I think the advantage should always be with the attacking team and the leniency should be there, but Paul Yates is a very accomplished referee.
Yeah, I don't know whether we've had, obviously we're not privy to referee meetings, but I don't know whether there's been some more directions about 2-on-1s, because I feel like the games I've watched today have been so 2-on-1 heavy, especially this Bayern Middlesbrough game, like crazy strict on them. So whether that's something that they've decided they want to try and tighten up on, I'm not sure.
Potentially, yeah, that come to think about it, obviously it's difficult with the games that I've watched, but there has been a high prevalence as Path Gakwad has to shift his momentum. He was in reverse, had to desperately drive forward to close that gap to his near post. Yeah, the games that I've watched, there has been a fairly high frequency of them, so I'll have to have the conversation with Jeff Lewis. A distinction from game weeks 1 and 2. Oscar Smedley for GBG Knights did leave the court in prevention of a clear goal scoring opportunity earlier, which actually wasn't a red card, because we got clarification from FITFA that if a player starts on the court and finds themselves driving off the court to then prevent it, it's only a yellow and an indirect free kick.
How long has that been the rule for?
We've only just been given clarification, but it was fantastic. It wasn't double jeopardy, it wasn't a red card, it wasn't a penalty, and it meant the play, it didn't kill off the game. So a really good distinction. It was policed beautifully by Jeff Lewis.
Yeah, I've spoken it. I mean, I think both of us, to be fair, on podcasts and commentary across the seasons have spoken quite strongly against that rule. It's not nice, I don't like it.
Oh, but I think that's the perfect introduction of it.
Remedy, yeah.
If a player does completely leave the court, then collides with the ball, then I can understand it. But if they start on, so the prime example for that Jeff Lewis referenced was Matt Gilbert. Do you remember the opportunity against Aspire?
I do.
And how that completely killed off the game. Had that been in 2026, February, as we sit now, he would have only got a yellow card.
Well, to be fair,
I know it didn't make much of a difference. It was the Marcus Harrison show that, though. 2-2 it finished, but it shows that the referees are noting these issues and they're being discussed. But we've discussed on so many occasions how English referees, the English National League, is world leading in terms of the officiating.
100%.
Late chance here, approaching the final minute. Indirect free kick for West Bromwich Albion Throstles. Regan Kemp into Thomas Donaher, into the 180, and that's another instance where not hitting it that cleanly can sometimes be to your benefit. Lee Armstrong adjusts well enough.
Yeah, I feel like we've said this before, this is not the game to show people when you're talking about getting like good ball contact and practicing getting exact, because every time they've got exact and got that powerful strike away, it's gone straight into the side of another chair. But when they've sort of scuffed it a little bit, it's been quite effective actually. Sounds like great games on both courts. I mean, every time I have sort of diverted my eyes to court A, it looks like there's absolute carnage going on between Villa and Sevenoaks, which I guess you'd expect from those two teams. They've got a lot of what we refer to as box office players on that court right now.
Certainly that. Crawshaw has to be careful. Sensibly didn't meet that with as much power as he could have because of the placement of Abigail Bolt.
Yeah, about as blatant a 2-on-1 as you get.
Just seeming to cancel each other out in the first half. We'll be intrigued to see their approaches in the second.
Yeah, I don't think they'll change a lot, to be fair. Both sides I can see an avenue to both sides scoring a goal in the current game state. I think, we've seen Throstles, they've been dangerous when the ball's got wide, especially to the side of Tom Donaher, and Newcastle constantly have that threat on the counter-attack, and especially from set pieces as well, they're very well drilled. So this game, I know it's a cliche and quite stating the obvious, but it could go either way because I think that both sides have got a real chance.
I completely agree. Thank you to all that have tuned in. To myself and Charlie, we'll be back very shortly for the second half. Hello everyone and welcome back to the second half of West Bromwich Albion Throstles versus Newcastle United Foundation. Currently 1-1. It's been a great first 20, hoping for more in the second. Give me your assessment, Charlie.
Yeah, I'm with you. I thought it was a great half of football, very entertaining. I think Newcastle dominated the last 10 minutes. Throstles probably saw the better of the first sort of 6, and then the middle patch was quite even, is how I'd say. I think, as I said, that there's a lot of chances in this game for both teams. I think there'll be a few big ones before the end of the game, and it will just be a case of who can take it. But you'd have to say, right now, if the game ended at half time, a point would have been a very fair result.
Yeah, absolutely agree. We've seen a substitute, and that is the player in question, Kieran Steer, Scotland international, on in place of Matty Harrison. Slightly unfortunate for Matty Harrison, who scored within, 5-10 seconds of his introduction in the first half. So he'll be disappointed and no doubt wanting to come back on to influence the result. But it shows that Newcastle United Foundation aren't happy with a point here.
Yeah, I think he was quite isolated, though, other than his goal, Harrison. So if Steer can come and get a bit more involved.
It's just the system that they play, though, Newcastle, isn't it? There's always going to be that high and wide winger. But I was very encouraged with what I saw from Throstles. And we watched a lot of football last season. We watched Throstles a lot. They struggled a great deal trying to adapt to that Colin Gordon system. Just didn't quite have the personnel to do it. This is what Throstles are. They're defensive, they're stubborn. They beat you and break you on the counter-attack. They don't outplay you.
Yeah, Throstles were quite a turgid watch at times last season under Colin Gordon. No real fault of the players or of the coach. It just, as you said, it wasn't quite the right fit. But yeah, they've really come into their own, and Abby Bolt and Pete Westmoreland, who are working together, deserve a lot of credit as they've created that chance. They just seem to be able to just navigate games so much better. They attack in phases and then they defend as a team. They always have players in the right positions, it feels like.
I think it's more psychological than it is anything tactical. I think they were going into games thinking they would lose last season, and it was like a self-fulfilling prophecy. This season, they think and they know they can give anyone a game, and they're staying calm. They're not panicking, even when they go 1-0 down. I know that wasn't the case in this one, but in other games, earlier was the perfect example. They went 1-0 down to Villa. They stayed calm. They stayed composed, and they found an equaliser late on. That's the biggest distinction from last year.
Yeah, you are right. It's the sort of composure and the character, the resilience to sometimes be beat down as they were with that early Villa goal, but then to get back up and keep swinging until the very last minutes of the game.
They've started the brighter of the two in this second. Another opportunity here. Abby Bolt into the box, over to Thomas Donoghue, blocked by Ollie Crawshaw. Cole Simpson just lost track of that ball.
I don't know if that was necessary from Regan Kemp, to be honest. I think he could have just let that ball run out. Instead, he's given Newcastle a kick in.
I just think Cole Simpson needed to stay in reverse there. Even some of the best wide players in the country, Cole Simpson falling into that bracket, sometimes have a tendency to drive onto the ball when the opportunity will be far more beneficial by staying in reverse. Out to Ollie Crawshaw, over to 180. He's looking for that switch of play, but Cole Simpson was way too central. He needed to expand the court, almost hug that touchline. So even if the ball had made its way through to him, he wouldn't have had the time or opportunity to capitalise. And this is something I'm interested to get your thoughts on. I've spoken about it on the RETP this week. When we want central players to play out wide, there is a tendency for them to be drawn into the centre action, almost like muscle memory. And Cole Simpson's the perfect example. The lion's share of his football across his career has been in the centre for Hull and East Yorkshire. So now he's out wide exclusively. Sometimes he resorts to familiarity and just sometimes gets drawn central when width is more beneficial.
I agree completely. I think you can tell when someone But I would back myself to, if given 10 examples of wingers, be able to tell which of them has been, a traditional touchline winger for their entire career, like my brother, for example,
Yep.
and which ones of them have transitioned from a central position. You're right, it's really tough not to get sort of involved in the game. You think, oh, if I'm here, I have a better chance to get involved. Although, to be fair, being a bit more central there did benefit Cole Simpson because he was able to spin on that ball.
It's not black and white. There is different times in the game that suits that more central positioning. But it's just something I've noticed, not necessarily with Cole Simpson, probably more so in the Championship, that when players switch positions, they bunch up in the centre. And that is when we see those 2-on-1s, that prevalence, because that discipline isn't there, because that positional awareness isn't necessarily there. That comes with time and experience. I know that. Kieran Steer is a perfect player to review and to assess here, because with Scotland and in Scotland, he plays in the centre. But Newcastle United Foundation, again, exclusively out wide. But we know they play a fairly fluid system where Ollie Crawshaw will sometimes go out wide, and it will need Cole Simpson and or Kieran Steer to fill in centrally.
Yeah, I still see a future for Ollie Crawshaw on the wing. I know he's obviously playing in the centre now for Newcastle, but I think there is a world in which he goes back to wide. Not because he's not incredible in the centre, he's one of the leading central players in the division, but just because I think he's such a strong dribbler, so reactive, a great finisher, and his ball contact is pretty much always perfect. And that is, the recipe of a really good wide player.
Ollie Crawshaw taking quickly. There was a gap between Regan Kemp and Parth Gakwad. What is even more remarkable about this partnership and defensive pair, they don't talk a great deal. It's
Not
almost telepathic in terms of their understanding of each other's position. To be honest, across the Throstles squad, very quiet in terms of vocal cues and instructions.
Yeah, and I guess that is the personality of the players to quite a large extent, because all of them off the court, a lot of them are quite unassuming, quite quiet, not shy, but yeah, just keep themselves to themselves individuals. But
brilliant, well-worked set piece. It needed that little bit of magic, that little bit of stardust. Kieran Steer connected with the ball. Cole Simpson slots it home, and they have found the goal that puts them 2-1 up.
yeah, it's actually a really simple goal for Newcastle. Literally, no dummy, no screen, just the ball across and a back post finish, which is really disappointing for Throstles. I think they were expecting, as it has done most times, for the ball to go back to Ollie Crawshaw for him to then try and intervene. But no, they just cut the middleman out completely and went winger to winger, and that's very effective.
And it all stems from that precision, that power on the initial dead ball, and how it's such a fundamental part of Powerchair football now, more so than it has been in years gone by, scoring from those set pieces, from those sideline balls. But it needs that initial delivery. Here, for instance, good ball from Thomas Donoher, locates Abigail Bolt, but Newcastle United Foundation able to thwart the chance.
Yeah.
That is why all teams need that dead ball specialist.
I think in modern football, in all forms of football, not just Powerchair, but the running game as well, you're just seeing the prevalence of set pieces become so much higher because, you look in the Premier League, for example, you've got Arsenal who are the masters of it. It's one of the only areas of the game that you can fully control. You have full control about where your players are, the position they're in, the starting position, where the delivery is. And a lot of football is about controlling the controllables, and that's what being good at set pieces allows you to do. So yes, I've seen a prevalence of them massively increase over the last year and a half. Actually, to be fair, we can sort of go back to Sydney. Since the US in Sydney, it's been massive in the English game.
Well, on that, if we reference Sydney, 90% of England's goals were open play goals. If we go to Italy in the EPFA Nations Cup, 90% of England's goals were set-piece goals. They've gone from one extreme to the other. And we know they put a lot of time, effort and energy into being proficient at them. It's just finding the balance between the two. Thomas Donoher now with one of those very valuable set pieces on this left-hand side. Patient, waiting for the gap to open. It's very congested. Regan Kemp probably a metre or two away from Abigail Bolt. There was some tussling and contact off the ball. Two players who are have very strong personalities. Neither will want to yield their space, their area. But do be considerate of Regan Kemp's placement, because this is a 2-on-1 waiting to happen for Newcastle United Foundation. He just drops off now. But if Regan Kemp enters that box, it will be an indirect free kick for Newcastle. Disappointing, and that miss hit allows Kieran Steer to turn defence into attack. Just didn't want to get that flick, invited Path Gakwad in. I don't know if it was intentional or not. And it does go out for a Newcastle ball.
Yeah, I don't know if he was attempting to do some sort of dummy there, Kieran Steer, but strange one. A strange set piece as well from Throstles up the other end.
Steer, Crawshaw, across the box, doesn't have the power, off the left-hand post, out for a goal kick.
Yes. Game's gone very quickly.
It really has, hasn't it? Scoreline on court 8. Villa Rockets a goal to the good against Sevenoaks. Here on court B, Newcastle United Foundation 2-1 up against Throstles. Very even, closely contested affair. Can Throstles find a way back into it? They did go 1-0 up in the first half. It was a quick equaliser from Matty Harrison. Things settled in the second, and it was just that well-worked set piece dispatched by Cole Simpson that sees them have bragging rights currently. So Kieran Steer struggling to get the room on that far side to take his corner. A lot of people courtside watching on into the box. Ollie Crawshaw over Path Gakwad and Regan Kemp, and rightfully so. The set ball will resume play. It's got a lot of smiles and a lot of lives. I'm just fortunate and thankful that it didn't collide with one of their heads.
That was ridiculous. That was like, if there was a crossbar on these goals, I think that would have been right on it.
I've just watched it back. I've never seen anything like that from a corner ball.
That was just crazy. I don't know whether the original delivery had a bit of bobble on it, but like, it wasn't as if it was like a full spin, you know, from Ollie Crawshaw. Max power. Very, very strange.
I'm sure Gary Mackay will be happy that Sam comes on for the final 7 minutes. Be interesting to see if he can influence it as Cole Simpson did, the player has come off.
Yeah, very productive day's work from Cole. Made one, scored one, both quite impressive.
Ollie Crawshaw into Kieran Steer. Kieran Steer's happy to let that roll out of play, so Ollie Crawshaw and Sam Mackay take their positions. Lee Armstrong up as well, so Ollie drops off. I wonder if this is into Lee Armstrong or the screen to Sam Mackay, which it is, and he just can't quite get the time in. Would have almost certainly been a goal scoring opportunity. There was almost a gap in that Throstles defence, so could have been their third. A let off for Throstles, who have just under 6 minutes to try and find an equaliser.
Yeah, that is a big let off.
Thomas Donaher flicked back to Regan Kemp. Lee Armstrong reading the angles well.
need to try and inject a bit of energy back into their game here. Throstles, alright, we'll just peter out and get away from them.
Yeah, yet to use any of their 3 substitutes. This is where I'd probably like to see them bring Amy Lee Julian into the centre, take Path off, drop Regan back. Just a little bit of fresh impetus and energy, to your point, Charlie, because this game is running away from them. They've also got Jonathan Davis and Amy Wharton, who have had to settle for very few minutes across the 25-26 campaign. Mainstays in this Throstles squad over the last 4 or 5 years. But they don't look to be shifting at all. Holly Crawshaw, Kieran Steer being ushered back by Jamie Harrison, blocked by Regan Kemp. It's got to be double digits now, Charlie.
Yep, you're right. It's definitely double digits.
No one came in at half time, so I don't think anyone is keeping tally.
It's a shame, really.
Yeah,
so
the
nice,
viewers
Lee.
need to do better.
Yeah, honestly, we're here talking, working so
I am
hard.
sat on this court all day today, all day tomorrow.
Yeah,
Give me something.
and one of you know how many viewers are we on?
We're on 40. It's good numbers.
And not a single one of you fancied just busting out a paper and pen.
It's a little bit selfish.
Yeah,
But anyway,
very
thank you
selfish.
to tuning in. And that's been the case across today. Fantastic numbers across Court A and Court B. And we absolutely love bringing you the action live. But Newcastle look to be seeing this game out. Ollie Crawshaw down to Kieran Steer, 180. Sam Mackay was in the gap, but needed to be at least 2 metres nearer to his own goal to be able to receive that.
Yeah, so much power on that.
It looks as if Throstles are going to go this whole game without a substitute, which I think is a little bit disappointing. I understand the reluctance to change throughout the first half, the early instances in the second, but following Newcastle's goal that put them 2-1 up, that's when you want to see them change and put a little bit more energy into it, because what they've currently got isn't working.
Yeah, I understand and recognise that they probably see that the 4 they've got out there right now as their strongest 4. It's good for any squad to know their strongest 4 and know the 4 that they want to start in games. But yeah, I think they could be a bit more aggressive, considering we've only got 2 minutes left of this game. Yeah, I'd be frustrated because I didn't see the full Villa game this morning, but didn't look like they particularly utilised their squad in that one either. So
Yeah, one to keep an eye out on. Off of Regan Kemp into Thomas Donaher straight away. They're condensed with this high press that Newcastle are adopting. Sam Mackay yet to really have a touch. A few miss-hits as we approach the final minute. Player of the match, Charlie. Who would you opt for?
oh, you know what? This is really tough today. This is one of the. I'm not going to give it to Ollie Crawshaw. I think he's been very good, but I want to give it to an attacking player because I think it's been a very good attacking game, and he's been doing a lot of the defensive dirty work. I think I'll give it to Cole Simpson. I know he went off, but he's, well... and here he is to get his final round of applause.
And double substitute for that matter. Amy Lee Julian comes on for the final minute. That's a little bit disappointing for me. I don't think she has nearly enough time to impart some of her influence. We'll get maybe one touch, but I agree completely with your points. Cole Simpson is the reason that they are likely to come away with the 3 points. He assisted the first one, scored the second, and instances like that, he's so brave, never backs down from a 50-50, irrelevant of who it's against.
don't know what's going on in Court A, but all of the players and officials were in absolute stitches there. So I don't know what's occurring, but that's going to be one to go back and watch.
2-on-1 in favour of Newcastle, and that's Amy Lee Julian just not getting up to the pace of the game because she hasn't been afforded that time to do so. So it's almost inevitable into Regan Kemp.
Yeah, I don't love when people get subbed on with like 40, 30 seconds left to go. It's like, but I mean, personally, if I was a player, obviously you want to play as much as possible, but if it was just for 50 seconds, I don't think I'd bother.
Paul Yates glances at his watch, the whistle in the mouth, so surely this is the absolute last chance. Down to Thomas Donher, cut out by Cole Simpson, and that is the full-time whistle. Newcastle got the job done. They had to do it the hard way, come in from behind, but a professional, composed 2-1 victory.
Yeah, good grit shown, good determination. Throstles, there were some real positives to take for them, but overall, probably a deserved 3 points for Newcastle.
That win puts Newcastle United Foundation above Villa Rockets and joint on points with West Bromwich Albion in 5th. But they have played a game more than the 2 teams above them. Thank you all that have tuned in to myself and Charlie. Hope you can tune in to others across Game Week 3 of the 2025-26 Slater and Gordon Premiership.